Angel Reese reveals the real reason behind Caitlin Clark's move to Europe. Angel Reese shuts down rumors, says Caitlin Clark's exits is a financial move.
Angel Reese couldn't let Caitlin Clark's overseas contract announcement pass quietly. So what did she do? She hijacked the moment, of course. Just as Clark was making headlines for landing a European deal to expand her career and earnings, Reese swooped in with a jab that left fans stunned. The headline alone felt like sabotage. In what looked like a desperate attempt to stay relevant, Reese, still under fire from her own steroid scandal, threw shade at Clark, claiming that players like her were just chasing paychecks overseas and using race as a sympathy card. The backlash was immediate. Social media exploded with criticism, calling Reese out for deflecting from her own controversies and trying to paint herself as the victim. People were baffled. How did the girl once hailed as the future of women's basketball become the one hurling baseless accusations and fueling division? For many, it was the last straw. Instead of supporting the growth of the league and celebrating another player's success, Reese seemed more interested in tearing it down. In an industry where unity and respect are hard-won, her actions felt less like bold truth-telling and more like reckless sabotage.
Talk about Caitlin getting hate, but someone sat down and spent hours putting together an 8-minute video with interlude clips all to trash Angel. Why?
But when the entitled complaints are coming from Angel Reese, it makes news throughout the mainstream media.
And yeah, it's painfully obvious that Angel Reese is aiming her comments directly at Caitlin Clark. The wildest part? Caitlin hasn't said a single negative word about Reese, or any other black player for that matter. She's stayed focused on the game, kept her head down, and let her work speak for itself. But for some reason, Reese seems determined to paint Clark as the villain in a drama she didn't sign up for. Maybe today is just one of those days where silence feels too generous, where some people don't deserve the benefit of quiet restraint. Because while Clark is out here representing the league with class and consistency, Reese keeps dragging the conversation into toxic territory. It's exhausting. The contrast couldn't be clearer. One player is building bridges, the other seems hell-bent on burning them.
Titled players in the WNBA just can't seem to understand is, you get what you put in, and right now, you are getting exactly what you deserve.
Well, let's be real. Caitlin Clark heading to Europe isn't just some spontaneous career move or chance to chase a new paycheck. No, it feels more like a strategic escape from the mess the WNBA has turned into. From the outside, the league might still look like a dream opportunity for a generational talent like Clark, a place where she could shine, dominate, and elevate the game. But the reality? It's been anything but that. Instead of just focusing on her game, Clark's been stuck navigating locker room tension, social media warfare, and off-court drama that feels more like reality TV than professional sports. She wasn't just dodging defenders on the court, she was dodging whispers, side eyes, and controversy every time she stepped into the spotlight. For someone who's given everything to the sport, who's carried herself with grace under pressure, Europe doesn't just offer a new playing field, it offers peace. A clean slate. A space to breathe, to ball, and to be respected for her talent without being dragged into the toxic circus. In the end, it's not about running away, it's about reclaiming control. And honestly, who could blame her?
So I think it's really just the fans, her fans, the Iowa fans, now the Indiana fans.
Because Caitlin Clark chose to stay silent, to rise above the noise while everyone else was trying to paint her as some kind of villain, the narrative around her spun wildly out of control. Some of her own peers, even a few voices in the media, had the audacity to label her a racist. And for what? For playing hard? For excelling? It's baffling how quickly excellence becomes a target when it threatens someone else's comfort. But true to her nature, Clark didn't take the bait. She didn't clap back, post cryptic tweets, or start drama-filled interviews. She stayed locked in on the game, the very thing that got her here in the first place. Still, the storm around her kept growing, fueled by gossip, hot takes, and petty rivalries. It started to feel less like professional basketball and more like the script of a bad reality show. Every day, it seemed like someone new had something to say about her. Everyone except Caitlin, who let her game speak louder than words ever could. In a league that seemed more interested in drama than discipline, her silence wasn't weakness. It was grace under fire. And that's exactly why people respect her.
I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base.
And then came Alyssa Thomas, clearly not in the mood for peace, who chose to toss gasoline on an already raging fire. Instead of cooling tensions, she went fully public, calling out Caitlin Clark and blaming her for racist comments made by some of her fans. Yes, seriously. According to Thomas, Clark was somehow responsible for the ignorant words shouted by random strangers in the crowd. Let that sink in, a professional athlete blaming another athlete for the behavior of people she doesn't even know. It didn't matter that Clark herself had never said anything remotely racist, nor had she encouraged that kind of toxic behavior. In fact, she had gone out of her way to avoid conflict entirely. But for Thomas, that wasn't enough. Her message was clear. If people in the stands say something offensive, the blame falls on Clark. The logic was baffling, and the backlash was instant. Some saw it as projection. Others said Thomas was reaching for headlines. But most just saw it for what it was, an unfair attempt to drag Clark through the mud for things far beyond her control. It was yet another example of how messy things had gotten in the WNBA.
Then she had a press conference where she cried and everybody's so mean to me. Well, she's continued the stupidity. I mean, she cheered on her teammate as she shoved Caitlin Clark, knocked Caitlin Clark in the head, and a bunch of other stupid stuff.
Absurd, right? This wasn't even about what Caitlin Clark did or said, because, spoiler alert, she said nothing. Alyssa Thomas wasn't reacting to any statement or action from Clark. No, this was about something else entirely. It felt more like Thomas was trying to deflect attention away from her own struggles, on the court, in the media, or maybe even within the league. Instead of owning her frustrations, she took whatever resentment, jealousy, or internal pressure she was carrying and bundled it into one tidy little accusation. Then she hurled it directly at Clark, hoping it would stick. But the reality is, you can't just fabricate a villain out of someone who's kept their head down and stayed focused on the game. The public saw through it. Fans weren't buying the narrative that Clark somehow controls the mouths of strangers in the stands. If anything, it only made Thomas look petty. And sadly, it's just more evidence of the toxic culture brewing under the surface of what should be a league celebrating its talent, not tearing each other apart out of envy and misplaced blame.
Who gives a rat's?
But here's the thing, Caitlin Clark didn't have to say a single controversial word or make a single wrong move to become a target. Her mere presence, her rise, the love she was receiving from fans, and the way her name dominated every highlight reel, news cycle, and endorsement deal. That was enough. Enough to spark a jealousy-fueled firestorm across the WNBA. And we're not talking about anonymous trolls or angry fans on social media. No, the real heat was coming from inside the house, from some of the very players she shared the court with. Instead of celebrating her once-in-a-generation talent, instead of lifting up the entire league with her success, a few chose to tear her down. They saw her stardom as a threat instead of a win for all of women's basketball. And that's where it all started to unravel. Because when ego gets louder than teamwork, and bitterness overshadows excellence, the sport suffers. Clark didn't ask to be the face of the league overnight, but she earned it. And rather than embrace that momentum, some players let jealousy rob them of a golden opportunity to elevate the game for everyone.
No, it's going to Caitlin Clark fans are mean. And if Caitlin Clark fans are mean and they're white, where does this head? Oh, you know it goes to racist.
Angel Reese had her own moment in the spotlight, no doubt. She was a star in her own right, celebrated for her confidence, her unapologetic style, and that unforgettable NCAA championship run. But let's be honest, Caitlin Clark's rise hit a different level. It was meteoric. While Reese held the spotlight briefly, Clark snatched it and never let go, quickly becoming the face of the WNBA. And that didn't sit well with everyone, especially not with Angel. While Clark's jersey flew off shelves and her name trended daily, Reese found herself watching from the sidelines as the spotlight shifted. That sting of being overlooked, after years of grinding, turned into something else: resentment. It wasn't just about fame. It was about legacy. These players had fought hard for their moment, and suddenly here comes a rookie, soaking up all the love like she owned it. Rather than rising to the challenge, some let the bitterness speak. Suddenly, every move Clark made was questioned. Every quote, every foul, every facial expression, magnified, scrutinized, attacked. It wasn't about fairness anymore. It was about finding any excuse to pull her down. But deep down, we all knew what it really was: jealousy, plain and simple.
Now they found another victim, the fans of Indiana. Now, I'm going to side a little bit with these idiots.
That's why Europe feels like a sweet escape for Caitlin Clark. This isn't just about signing a new contract or trying out a different league. It's about getting away from the toxic storm the WNBA has become. What was supposed to be a dream turned into a circus filled with jealousy, petty drama, and non-stop accusations. And the crazy part? Clark never even said anything controversial. She stayed quiet, focused on her game, while the league around her twisted her silence into guilt. Then Alyssa Thomas blamed her for racist fan behavior, as if Clark controls what random people in the stands say. That was the breaking point. It wasn't about basketball anymore. It was about tearing someone down just because the world loved her too much. So Clark said nothing. She packed her bags and headed to Europe. And right on cue, Angel Reese showed up to hijack the moment. According to Reese, Clark's move had nothing to do with toxic teammates or dirty politics. It was just about money. That's rich, coming from someone whose own career is collapsing under steroid scandal. While Clark was planning her next chapter, Reese was drowning in headlines, EPOS, anabolic drugs, suspensions, and even a lawsuit from her own team. But instead of facing the music, she launched a smear campaign against Clark. Again. She didn't stop at Clark either. She took shots at the entire league, saying everyone's just in it for the paycheck. But let's be real, this isn't about money. This is about jealousy, deflection, and a desperate player trying to stay relevant. Reese's legacy is falling apart, and the only way she knows how to cope is to drag someone else down with her. The problem is, no one's buying it anymore.
Her attention, her notoriety is based off Caitlin Clark. Because she wins the national title, first thing she does, she mocks Caitlin Clark. And then she doesn't even celebrate with her teammates. So she's made it personal with Caitlin Clark.